Welcome to the Deep Dive Protocol. I'm your host, Poet Woods. Now, you may have seen my strategies featured on NBC, CBS, and Fox News. But today, we're going deeper than sound bites. As a certified knowledge broker and transformational strategist, I know that success is 80% psychology. But as a Google certified AI performance specialist and an AI generalist, I also know that without the right systems, mindset is just a dream. My mission is to fuse these two worlds. In this episode, I've commissioned my AI intelligence team to deconstruct the code of the top 1%. We're stripping away the noise to reveal the real architecture of success. This isn't just a podcast. It's a reprogramming session. Get ready, because now it's time to think with an entrepreneur's mind. The protocol begins now.
Welcome to the debate. Our focus today is on the ETEC methodology. That's educational, transformational, entrepreneurial, consulting coaching, a framework developed by Poet Woods. The source material we're looking at describes it quite compellingly as a precision-engineered tool for subconscious reprogramming.
And, that description right there immediately raises a pretty serious flag for me. The central question we have to tackle today is this. Does ETEC represent a valid, scientifically grounded technology for optimizing the entrepreneurial mind? Or does it rely far too heavily on these unproven sort of metaphysical claims that, frankly, I think profoundly compromise its credibility?
Well, I'd argue that the functional core of ETEC is actually firmly rooted in documented neurobiology and psychology, specifically how the auditory system interfaces with our emotional and motor circuits. That makes it, in my view, a legitimate, data-backed sonoceutical.
And my skepticism starts right there. I hold that the methodology it's compromised by its inclusion of pseudoscientific elements. I really need to see hard, materialistic evidence for these claims of mental reprogramming through music, not theories that often verge on, philosophical speculation. Okay, let me start by just articulating the primary issue I have. The source material, it correctly identifies the core problem, the failure of implementation and mindset, which costs entrepreneurs, time and capital, but the mechanism it proposes to fix it seems fundamentally compromised by fringe theory. I'm looking directly at Section 4, the so-called quantum mechanics lens.
That's the theoretical underpinning, yes.
The theoretical is putting a very, very kind gloss on it. The material explicitly references the orchestrated objective reduction, or Orch OR theory by Penrose and Hameroff, suggesting consciousness originates from quantum processes in microtubules. And then on top of that, we see concepts like solfeggio frequencies, 528 Hz, 432 Hz, aimed at tuning the listener's biofield. Come on. If ETEC is a serious business strategy rooted in cognitive science, why are we importing these abstract vibrational theories that have virtually zero empirical backing in any kind of clinical setting?
I see why you'd think that. I do. But let me offer a different perspective. While the quantum elements might exist at the leading edge of theoretical physics, providing a potential high-level philosophical framework for why coherence works, they don't invalidate the comprehensive neurobiological core of the system. My position really focuses on the verifiable data points and, the functional results.
Which are what, exactly?
They're based on the central data-backed thesis. The entrepreneurial mind operates as a biological operating system that is susceptible to reprogramming through auditory input. The report meticulously details the neurobiological mechanics. For instance, the system uses music to hijack the mesolimbic dopamine pathway. That's the brain's natural reward circuit, creating this crucial feedback loop where learning equals pleasure. This immediate chemical reinforcement creates a behavioral adherence far beyond standard motivation.
The dopamine angle is sound. Classic conditioning is effective, but if you have that solid foundation, why layer on these highly speculative concepts?
Because the mechanism goes deeper than just basic conditioning. It explicitly uses the frequency following response, or FFR, to bypass what the report terms the critical factor.
Which is?
That is the cognitive barrier, the conscious filter, your sort of inner editor, that filters all information based on your existing beliefs. It's why dry advice so often fails, right? Your critical factor says, that's a nice idea, but I know I'm not good enough. ETEC is designed to distract that editor. FFR is key here because the brain actually locks onto the auditory frequency, forcing synchronization. This is a targeted psychological intervention, not just, motivational background music. We really have to define ETEC by its function, not just its philosophical wrapper.
I just come at it from a different way. If the documented neuroplasticity mechanisms are truly effective, if you can use dopamine and FFR to create this transformative effect, why introduce the unnecessary, scientifically precarious noise of Orch OR theory? It risks turning what could be a clever piece of behavioral engineering into something that just looks like standard self-help marketing, dressing up sound psychology with impressive but currently unproven physics terminology.
The material suggests the quantum framework addresses coherence at the deepest level, the integration of the body and mind. But look, I will concede that the empirical proof resides in the auditory-motor pathway, not the microtubules. So let's focus there. The report cites robust findings from established neuroscientists like Dr. Andrew Huberman, which emphasize that the auditory system is uniquely wired to the motor system.
Right, that link between rhythm and motor drive is well established. Music makes us move. But how does ETEC leverage that known neurological connection for reprogramming business strategy, specifically? That's where the proof really needs to lie.
Through tempo-specific programming. This is what confirms ETEC as a tool built upon specific data mapping. Auditory stimuli, rhythm specifically, bypasses conscious control and directly stimulates the premotor cortex and the cerebellum, the body's engine for action and coordination. ETEC utilizes specific BPM mapping to induce targeted psychological states that are linked to entrepreneurial tasks.
Give me an example of that precision.
Okay. We see tracks engineered specifically at 140 to 150 BPM. This tempo triggers the sympathetic nervous system. It's high energy, perfect for high-speed execution tasks, for overcoming inertia and just taking action. Conversely, you have tracks at 60 to 80 BPM that align with the resting heart rate to induce alpha brainwaves, which facilitate what they call superlearning. This state of relaxed focus increases suggestibility, making the absorption of affirmations and new belief systems far more effective than trying to absorb them under stress.
I appreciate the elegance of that mechanism. The idea that you can map musical tempo to physiological arousal and cognitive state is compelling. However, I must respectfully push back on the framing of FFR here. If the track is complex, you have lyrics, bass, melody, percussion. Can the brain truly lock on to a specific frequency with the same reliability as, say, a simple, dedicated binaural beat? Or is this synchronization just a secondary effect of the tempo?
I think that assessment risks missing the forest for the trees. The synchronization isn't just about a simple tone. It is about the rhythmic driving of the motor cortex. The complexity of ETEC's production is designed to ensure the tempo, which is the core structural element, is dominant. We use rhythm as the sledgehammer to open the door, and then the complexity of the song serves as the Trojan horse to slip the content past the critical factor. So, let's delve into that Trojan horse mechanism, the efficacy of bypassing the critical factor using complex music. The bypass mechanism works because music engages the left hemisphere, which processes the logical content like lyrics and syntax, and it simultaneously engages the right hemisphere, which processes the emotional and abstract content like melody and timbre.
Hemispheric synchronization. Yes.
Exactly. But strategically applied, this whole brain activation overloads the critical factor. It's like overwhelming a computer firewall by throwing too much parallel data at it. The educational payload, the embedded NLP commands, can then slip past that conscious gatekeeper and land directly in the subconscious, which is where, 95% of our behavioral patterns reside.
Okay, that's a compelling argument based on cognitive load. But the content itself has to be trustworthy to the brain. We're talking about integrating complex business axioms and motivational phrases into rap and melodic structures. The report references Dr. Eric Jarvis's research on vocal learning. I understand the human brain is wired for vocal learning and emotional modulation, but does the brain truly process business truths delivered via song with a higher degree of emotional trust than if I just gave a dry, logical lecture? I still suspect this is highly suggestive language disguised as a robust scientific mechanism.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because the emotional component is the key to durability. The fact that humans are vocal learners means song involves the modulation of pitch, rhythm, and emotion, which the brain interprets as a high-fidelity emotional signal. It's a form of deep learning. When a belief is emotionally anchored, the transformation is orders of magnitude more durable than cognitive awareness gained through rote logic alone.
Explain how that translates into a concrete shift from merely believing in success to actually embodying it.
Look at the internal case study for the track You Should Believe. The core objective there is bridging the gap from conscious belief to subconscious knowing. The song uses a specific narrative structure, presenting 3 distinct entrepreneurial avatars who move from doubt to empirical success. By hearing and feeling these characters succeed, the listener's mirror neurons fire as if they are experiencing that transition themselves. This is not simple suggestion. This is the engineered use of the social brain to map a success journey onto the listener's nervous system. It creates a motor and identity template, making the desired success state feel physically familiar, a form of psychological muscle memory.
The concept of engineering a powerful and persistent state through complex auditory stimuli is starting to gain some traction with me. But it also raises a different issue. If the methodology is this effective at identity integration, the motive of the architect becomes paramount. Let's shift focus from the mechanics to the motive, which is where my materialist skepticism always lands.
The identity anchor.
Precisely. We've established that the highest logical level of change in NLP is identity. Now, Poet Woods himself has strategically evolved the POET acronym from a simple stage name to Powerful, Omnipotent, E Pluribus Unum Tonality. He holds significant certifications: Certified Transformational Coach, Certified Knowledge Broker. This demonstrates a very strategic creation of a high-status persona. So I have to ask, is this methodology primarily designed to foster independent self-efficacy in the entrepreneur, or is it designed to anchor the listener to the personality and high agency of Poet Woods, creating a dependency, a cult-like adherence, if you will?
That is a critical challenge, and it requires a careful distinction between modeling and dependence. We have to frame the POET identity not as a personality cult, but as a strategically engineered identity anchor within the NLP framework, serving as a high-status template.
But the modeling uses the founder's own perceived high status. That's the risk.
It is a deliberate choice, but for the sake of the client's efficacy. The system leverages the social brain's propensity to model high status. Consider the analysis of the track I'm a G, which delivers a high-status identity statement. Crucially, this track pairs that statement with the deliberate and concentrated use of sub-bass frequencies, specifically 40 to 80 hertz.
And what does that low frequency achieve physiologically?
Well, that specific sub-bass range triggers a measured physiological power pose response. Research shows that deep bass frequencies, when experienced somatically, increase feelings of power and reduce anxiety. This response includes a documented increase in testosterone, which enhances motor drive and execution. So the methodology deliberately uses the founder's modeled high agency, the I'm a G statement, to trigger a physiological and psychological response that immediately instills that desired state in the listener. It is engineering the feeling of power through neurochemical alteration, not demanding adherence to a guru. It's creating a temporary internal template until the new identity is self-sustaining.
Okay, that is a much stronger defense. You're arguing that the mechanism is designed to produce a measurable neurochemical outcome, a physical power state, which then reinforces the identity statement rather than relying solely on the listener's admiration for the founder. The fact that ETEC is engineering specific physiological changes using frequency, like increased testosterone associated with the I'm a G track, does put the burden of proof back on the empirical outcomes rather than the theoretical underpinning of the source material.
Exactly. It shifts ETEC from abstract self-help into a functional bio-integrated technology. If the consensus is that 95% of cognitive function is governed by a subconscious operating system riddled with fear, doubt, and scarcity, then a tool that can bypass the conscious, critical gatekeeper using verifiable auditory and motor science is a necessary breakthrough. The report confirms ETEC as a robust technology rooted in the proven link between auditory rhythm and the motor cortex, enabling that essential subconscious access.
I have to acknowledge the strength of the evidence concerning the mesolimbic dopamine reward loop, the auditory driving mechanisms, and the strategic NLP reframing, like that key reframe that failure is just tuition. Those core materialistic elements present a functionally viable solution to the fundamental problem of entrepreneurial mindset failure, a problem that causes significant financial and psychological strain.
So the methodology's proven utility ultimately outweighs the theoretical concerns about its metaphysical language?
Well, while the Orch OR and biofield claims remain scientifically tenuous, and I maintain that their inclusion really muddies the water, I can concede that the core neurobiological structure, coupled with the strategic implementation of tempo, FFR, and hypnotic language, means ETEC is far more than mere entertainment. It is operating on documented, testable principles of neuroplasticity and behavioral conditioning.
Ultimately, ETEC is described as a programmable interface for the human biocomputer. The functional result is an optimized, resilient operating system for the entrepreneur. The ultimate judge of this technology is the result of that reprogramming. The value of considering these multiple perspectives, from the hard neurobiology to the more abstract vibrational claims, is in recognizing that a comprehensive technology often draws from many fields, some of which are still emerging. But what we've established today is that the function of ETEC is clearly defined by its data-backed mechanisms, even if the philosophical wrapping of quantum consciousness remains a vigorous and yet-to-be-resolved debate.
The transmission ends here, but the construction project is just beginning. Now, I've told you to go get the blueprint, but you need to understand, I'm not just sending you there to download a PDF. I'm sending you to the armory. The blueprint is the central command station for an entrepreneur's mind. When you step inside, you aren't just getting scripts. You're getting access to the full scope of my agency's heavy artillery. The AI appointment bots to clone your sales team and book calls while you sleep. The interactive video engines that turn passive viewers into active buyers. The Dirty Dollars OS to automate your access acquisition. And even the legal architectures and biohacking fuel you need to protect and power your empire. And so much more. We have the tech, the strategy, the protection, and the protocol. It's all waiting for you behind one door. Go to anentrepreneursmind.com/blueprint. Stop playing with the pieces of the puzzle. Come get the whole picture. Initiate the protocol. I'll see you on the inside. Stay focused, and as always, straight ahead.